My name is Michelle Haubner, and this video is in completion for the class EDU581 through Georgetown College about ESL assessments. I'm here working with a collaborating teacher, and we're going to talk about a few of her assessments that she used for a student of hers who came from Guam. We're also going to talk about some cultural issues which would maybe affect that student during school and throughout assessments as well. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is just kind of the culture of Guam. Guam is kind of a little bit interesting to research because it has such a heavy U.S. influence because it's a U.S. territory. And so a lot of their things like the school systems and their procedures and things are very similar to the U.S. because they have that influence imposed on them. But at the same time, they very much like to try to preserve their original culture. So they have extra holidays and things that we wouldn't celebrate in the States, but there's still national holidays there.
Okay.
And they also have other languages. There's lots of Pacific Islander languages, Japanese, Filipino, so lots of different things all in one little country. So lots of culture to consider. When we're talking about Guam, a few of the popular holidays are Discovery Day and Libertarian Day. Also the Chamorro people, which is the main group, the biggest demographic there, they're very passionate about trying to preserve their culture, especially because over the years they've had a lot of different people who have come and taken over their country and been in charge of them. And so they feel very strongly about trying to remember their traditions and remember the things of the past. Okay, so next we're going to look at some of the modifications that you made, or some of the modifications that I made to your assessments, and especially in regards to the cultural effects on the assessments. So one thing that we always want to make sure of is that regardless of their English language proficiency or their cultural background, that the student is receiving a fair opportunity to demonstrate proficiency along with his peers. So for example, one of the things that would maybe be an example of how culture can affect assessments is just if there's something that says write about a festival in your town. So festival to your student might mean something completely different, whereas here in the States it could be a county fair, it could be something for FFA, and for him it's probably a celebration of the past with storytelling and traditional dances, and it could look completely different. So that's one of the ways that we can kind of think about how culture affects assessments. There's three words that are really important when we're talking about assessments, and that's going to be fairness, reliability, and validity. And fairness is making sure that there's no cultural bias, that there's a fair opportunity for students, even if they don't speak English really well. So just making sure everything is equal for everybody. Reliability means that we're wanting to make sure that the assessment produces consistent results. So if we assess a student using this process several times, will we still get the same answer from them? Excuse me. And validity is making sure that it measures what you're trying to measure. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to look at one thing from each category. Since you're the core content teacher, some of these are from different areas. But in regards to fairness, just some of the modifications that I added. We're in history class, making sure you pulled in some things maybe about his culture, maybe that Libertarian Day or Discovery Day, and allowing him to maybe even share things that he liked to do at those times. And also you've mentioned that they do journals, and I know that his English language proficiency is pretty low, especially in regards to writing and being able to make some letter connections. And so one thing there would be maybe allowing him to do a picture or something where he can express something but maybe not using words, and then that gives him an opportunity to still show that he understood the prompt, and he wasn't affected or held back by his English language proficiency. For reliability, we talked a lot, and lots of the teachers that work with him actually talked about this, using the test with the 1 to 5 finger rating. So for that one for me, I think there could be a little bit of modification just to make sure that it's reliable, because as long as he's understanding the question, that turns out to be a good assessment. But it could be that one time he gives you a 2, one time he gives you a 5, even if you're asking the same question, because maybe the first time he doesn't understand and the second time he does. So for that one, the only modification I made is just kind of maybe spending some time with him personally to make sure he understood the question, just kind of checking in with him to make sure that that test comes out as a reliable answer. And the last one, validity. Talking about math, in Guam they do use the metric system, which is kind of unexpected because they're U.S. territory.
Right.
You would think that they would not. So it could be that if you're talking about how many inches are in a foot, maybe he gets the idea if you were doing centimeters and meters.
Okay.
But he might not get the idea if it's U.S. measurements, just because of that cultural difference there.
Right.
And so that could end up being some invalid results
Good
on
to
his,
know.
on his assessments there. So when we're talking about modifying for students, one of the things, or two of the things that we can focus on are standard-based assessments and traditional assessments. So most of the modifications we've talked about lean more towards standard-based assessments. So this is making things equal for all students. Standard-based assessments really do well of comparing the student with what that student can do and not comparing the student to other people in the class. And so it's setting a level of proficiency and giving a variety of ways for that student to demonstrate proficiency regardless of where they are in life. It also makes an opportunity where students can connect things to their own personal real life experiences, and this can help students commit things to memory, learn things much better, and in the long term they're able to apply it to other areas of their schooling as well. Whereas traditional assessments, they also have their place and they also can be excellent resources, but sometimes, especially for ELL students, it really confines their learning and their ability to express themselves. Sometimes can make them even just feel nervous, and so there can be a little bit of gray area there, whereas with the standards-based assessments you can get a more accurate representation of what they know how to do. I think that's all we have. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for meeting with me.
No problem. Thank you.